Hey viewers, welcome to my orchid world. As winter has set in, today we will be talking about a very important aspect of growing orchids, which is winter rest. We'll talk about winter rest, what exactly it is, what care you should take for your orchids during winter rest, which orchids need winter rest, which orchids keep on growing during winter and do not take any winter rest. We'll talk about both species and hybrid orchids. So let us begin. Winter rest is a natural dormancy period experienced by orchids, especially the species during the colder months. We all know that orchids need an optimum temperature, optimum rainfall, and optimum humidity for their proper growth, which happens during the summer months. And during summer months, orchids grow naturally under these optimal conditions. As winter approaches, temperature starts to drop. During this time, their growth slows down significantly because their optimum conditions are not met during winter months. Rainfall is reduced, light reduces, daylight becomes shorter, temperature drops, and these optimal conditions are not met by the orchids, and hence they take a winter rest. Now, what exactly is winter rest? Winter rest is basically a no work, you can say, for orchids. This is a dormancy period. Naturally, it comes experienced by our orchid species. Basically, I have both hybrid and species orchids. I have seen that the species orchids, many of them take winter rest. I'll discuss later about which variety or which species orchids take winter rest. Basically, during the colder months, the orchids stop all their activities. During the winter rest, orchids drop their leaves and they slow down in growth of roots, growth of new parts like leaves or pseudobulbs or shoots. Basically, they take a rest from all their natural growing process, natural blooming process. They take a rest because they need to grow in their optimal conditions, which are not available during the winter months. This shift in their activities helps them to conserve energy and resources that protects them from the harsh winter conditions like frost and reduced sunlight. So our orchids take a break from the natural activities, natural food production, natural bloom production, natural production of new roots, new shoots. So this helps them to conserve energy, and when temperature starts warming up again, they start their activities once again. They grow new leaves, new roots, and these all are very visible changes which you will see when you grow orchids, this kind of species orchids which take rest. We'll discuss that not all orchids take winter rest. So here you can see the Dendrobium ephyllum species orchid, which is currently undergoing winter rest. You can see there are no leaves. It has dropped all its leaves to reduce the activities, and it looks like the canes have all dried up. But as winter will recede and temperature will start warming up again, you will see that these nodes will form buds. That is, the blooming period of Dendrobium ephyllum will start. So the new nodes will produce buds. Here is another species Dendrobium orchid. You can see it has shed all its leaves. Only one leaf is remaining. The canes are currently undergoing winter rest, and when temperature will start rising again, this canes will produce blooms. So this is one particular very distinct characteristic, that it sheds all its leaves when taking winter rest. Now, hybrid Dendrobium orchids, whichever variety I have in my collection, do not take winter rest. It is visible from the fact that they have been growing new kikis, new roots. All of them are currently growing new kikis. Some of them have just finished blooming. Some are in buds right now. As you can see, they are growing kikis. The kikis are nice green. They constantly are growing. They are also growing new roots. How you know that they are growing the roots? The roots are currently growing by looking at the root tips. If the root tip is green, then we can know that the root is currently in growth. You can see the canes are growing new shoots, small tiny shoots. These are kikis which will eventually grow into big matured plants. As you can see, they are currently in growth, because if you notice that the orchid is currently growing new parts like new kikis, new leaves, new roots, then we know that it is not in winter rest. It is not taking winter rest. In winter also it is growing. So these are hybrid dendrobium orchids which do not take winter rest. Here is one dendrobium hybrid orchid which is currently in bud. It has not bloomed yet. Yes, because we know that in winter rest, dendrobiums or say any orchid which take winter rest will not grow any new part. In this orchid you can see it has a spike and there are buds, and since it is growing buds, it is in blooming cycle right now, we can conclude that this orchid doesn't take winter rest, because currently it is winter and it has not taken winter rest. This orchid has just finished blooming. You have seen it in one of my previous videos. So since it is in blooming cycle right now, this is a hybrid orchid, hybrid dendrobium orchid, which is not in rest. Here is one hybrid Cattleya orchid. You can see it is growing a new shoot right now. It is growing. The tips of the roots are also growing. So by observing this phenomena exhibited by our hybrid Cattleya orchids, we can conclude that hybrid Cattleya orchids do not take winter rest. I have been observing all my Cattleya orchids. I have only hybrid Cattleya orchids which are not seen to take winter rest. Another Cattleya orchid, it is growing new, multiple new roots, new shoots. The tip of the roots, as you can see, are green, which shows that it is growing, and since growth is happening, we can say that this orchid, this hybrid Cattleya orchid, is not in winter rest. Another hybrid Cattleya orchid, you can see there is one small nub growing inside the leaf joint. I don't know if you can see it because it's very tiny, but it is growing and hence it is not in winter rest. Hybrid Phalaenopsis orchid definitely do not take winter rest. Winter is the season when hybrid Phalaenopsis orchids put out blooms and put out spikes. So as winter starts, they start putting out flower spikes, as you can see. So hybrid Phalaenopsis orchids do not take winter rest. This is the blooming season for Phalaenopsis orchids. Those are hybrids, and we will see about species Phalaenopsis. Here is my one and only Phalaenopsis species orchid. As you can see, it is growing a very healthy, nice root, one new leaf. It is constantly growing. So Phalaenopsis species orchid which I have is not in winter rest. It is not taking winter rest. It is growing new roots, new leaves, and so, but it is very generic, and I cannot conclude that species Phalaenopsis orchid do not take winter rest. Maybe there are Phalaenopsis species orchids in other parts of the world which take winter rest, but the one which is currently in my collection is not under winter rest. It is growing. So what about Vendaceous orchids? These are species Vendaceous orchids which you have seen in my previous videos. This is the Aerides odorata. It is growing new leaf, and I have seen that the Vendaceous orchid species which I have are not in winter rest. Every year I keep on seeing them. They do not take winter rest. The tip of the root is green and we know that it is growing, and hence vivacious orchids whichever I have are not in winter rest during the winter months. They keep on growing new parts, they keep growing new roots, new leaves, and they keep on growing in winter months as well. This is the Rhynchostylis retusa, the distinctive long leaves of the retusa. As you can see, it is currently growing a new leaf inside the crown. It is not visible. The roots have somewhat paused growing and there are no green tips. So it is in somewhat semi winter rest condition. The leaves have folded, as you can see, to reduce the activities because sunlight is dim. It is a very bright light orchid. It needs very bright light. Too much rainfall and too much of humidity, high humidity, and hence since winter months have low humidity, there is no rainfall, and the light has also reduced, daylight has shortened, and hence it has taken a pause from its activities. Though the leaf is growing, the roots are not growing, which helps in conserving of energy for the orchid. And when temperature will rise again, it will again start its activities. The leaves will open up, the folds will go. As you can see, the leaves have folded. All the leaves have folded so that it can reduce its activities. And when temperature will start rising up, this orchid will put out spike. This is the season. In February it will put out spike, and by April, May it will bloom. This is the Rhynanthera monahica. This is a species orchid. It is not in rest currently. This is a vivacious type orchid. Suddenly 2 days back I saw that there is a spike growing. It somehow went unnoticed in the previous week, but now I have seen that it is growing a new spike and it will eventually bloom. Since it is growing a new spike, it is also growing new root, new leaf. As you can see, the middle part from the crown, there is a new leaf, and it is growing a new spike. It is growing new root. You can see the spike there. So we can conclude that this orchid is not currently in winter rest. That is the old spike which has dried up, and this is the new spike. You can see it is currently very tiny, very short. It will eventually elongate and buds will form, and it will take it may take 2 months to bloom eventually. It is growing a new very healthy root. The tip is red. The tip of this orchid, the root tip of this orchid is reddish, and hence we can conclude that this Rhynanthera monahica is not undergoing winter rest. It doesn't take winter rest. It keeps on growing in winter months as well. Here is one very interesting vivacious type orchid. This is a terete Vanda type orchid, where you can see the leaves have been modified. They have modified leaves which appear as round, and this orchid is also called pencil orchid since the leaves are modified and looks like pencils. This is a terete Vanda type orchid. You can see this orchid also, since it is vivacious type orchid, it doesn't take winter rest. The middle crown portion, there is one new leaf growing. This is the leaf. This is a very interesting kind of Vanda orchid which has round leaves and looks like stick or say pencil. So this is somewhat climber kind of orchid, climber kind of Vanda orchid. You can see the stem is very long. It keeps on growing, and it's elongated kind of Vanda orchid. The previous leaves have shriveled, but the crown is growing a new leaf, very healthy new green colored leaf. So this orchid also doesn't take winter rest. If you have an orchid species which needs winter rest, you need to follow the following care tips. Water less frequently, allowing the potting medium to dry out. almost completely between waterings. Overwatering during dormancy can lead to root rot. Provide slightly cooler temperatures, ideally around 13 to 18 degrees Celsius. Avoid exposing them to drafts or frosts. Some species may benefit from slightly less light during dormancy. However, avoid placing them completely in darkness. Fertilization should be completely withheld during the winter rest period for orchids. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you have orchids that need winter rest, do take care of them during the winter months as the tips have been provided. Please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.